Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a new member, Terry, and yep. So she's replacing Karen Foster. And Terry, why don't you kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of go around.
So Terry Catelier, I was on the prior charter revision commission, as gentleman tell you. And so that was for the duration of that. Member of the Democratic Town Committee. Over the years, I've worked on quite a few campaigns and so retired, so that I was a legal for about 30 years or something like that. So that's it. It's time to back to me anymore.
Hey, you're a co-worker.
Oh, the work. Hey, I appreciate it.
So anyway, all right, we'll go around. We'll start with John.
With?
Your name. Introduce yourself. You don't have to say more than your name.
Yeah, John Lennon. Okay.
Tim Beadle.
Nick Beatty.
And Carter. All right. So, and Joan is absent, and guess everyone else is here. So, I know it's great to have that continuity of having John and Terry having been on the previous Charter Revision Commission. And I'm hoping at this point, were you able to get the markup of the original markup from the last Charter Revision Commission? And
I actually think I have.
and the Board of Selectmen's recommendations?
The prior ones?
No, this,
Of these, yeah, I do. I don't have, yeah.
okay, no, as long as you have.
Yeah.
That's the important.
Yeah.
So as a commission, Charter Revision Commission, we have reviewed everything that the previous commission had done, and we've completed going through everything that the Board of Selectmen have recommended. We have a couple items that are tabled. We'll be going back to those.
Okay.
And then according to the charter on the agenda, then we're next going through any other proposals that were submitted to the Charter Revision Commission this go round. And then the thing that we added, you may have noticed, the thing that we added is the last agenda item, consideration of charter revision proposals presented by commission members themselves. So that will probably address at the next meeting. And what I ask everyone to do is, if you have items that you think you'd like to bring up as charter revision items, let us know in advance and we will add them to the agenda so that it's clear to the public, what we're going to be discussing. So I think that's about it. And I did make a list of, first thing we need to do too is approve the minutes from December 11th.
Excuse me, we need to do public comments and correspondence.
Oh, okay. Public.
There's no public here, but we do have correspondence,
Okay.
and it's labeled A1 in your packets.
Before I get to that, I just got one quick question. Are you referring to, what numbers here, if you've got ideas, things that are not represented in the current revision? Or things that we've discussed about that are related to what's already there?
We're talking about items that were not addressed by the previous Charter Revision Commission. Items that were not addressed by the Board of Selectmen, something else.
Okay.
So,
I didn't know if you were referring to something that's totally outside of the existing.
so as an example, I was noticing, Dan, last week is looking over the appointments that need to be made. That there's no mention of constables in the charter. And I don't know whether.
No, that might be well, it's in state law,
Right.
about having them. I don't remember if we set in code, town code. I think it's where they, I don't know if I computed that. No, I think it's in town code.
So we'll,
where they are.
so we can, so that, I was just showing an example of, hey, there's something that a member of this commission could bring up. And it may not be something that gets turned into language, but it's something that's,
But that's
Brought
not
up,
under public
discussed.
comments though, is it?
no.
Why, sorry.
Alice is fine.
I'm still following. No, I'm sorry.
We were on that, and then Pat asked the
Yeah,
question.
before we got the public comments, I was trying,
Yes,
Okay,
I just want to follow up.
got it.
so, okay, so that's what that would.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to follow.
Okay, so back to then correspondence. So there is a piece of correspondence here from Fran Pulley. And so this is something that we would consider on tonight's agenda as being a charter vision piece that came through the public from, either at the public hearing, at public comment periods, or by correspondence. So then we can move on to the minutes of December 11th. Okay, would someone like to make a motion on those minutes?
I move to be accepted minutes of December 11th.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay,
I was here.
you were there. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Standing because I wasn't here. Okay, thank you.
And Terry, you're
Terry,
abstaining.
you're abstaining. Okay, that's that. So then, as I said before, we've already gone through the 2019 Charter Revision Commission proposals, the Board of Selectmen proposals, and then this is consideration of any other proposals submitted to the Charter Revision Commission. And I made a list, and Mary, maybe you'll think of any others that might have come up, but
Mr. Chair, from my notes too, I did include towards the end of the tracker document what I believe to be the full amount of funds from the public.
Okay, great. So I had Matt Knickerbocker talked in support of the 5-member Board of Selectmen. We have discussed that, and we have tabled it, and we'll be going back to that issue. Frank Hislop talked about audits and forensic audits. I don't think that's necessarily anything that goes in the charter. It's nothing that's in the charter now.
Well, we actually do annual audits every year. It's already being done. So I'm not sure what a forensic audit would be different. We pay a significant amount of money every year. We have a third-party auditor that comes out with all the books.
And I don't think that's anything that's covered in the charter. That's just,
But I think when, during that public comment, I thought that we explained that and he felt a little more comfortable
Yeah,
that there was a process.
State statute runs it.
Yeah.
okay, then
Sorry.
Gabriela Hernandez suggested that the charter requires notices be published in both the paper and the website.
Well, we started off with paper notifications with the New York Times, but they're prohibitively expensive. And when we had a separate paper like the home news and stuff, you could do that all the time. Now we don't even have a penny saver.
No.
And that's the other place that we used to put it. So some of it may have to do with expense more than anything else.
But all notices go in the paper now, even
Right.
regardless of the expense. It still goes in the
It has to be a
news.
paper with substantial circulation with a certain number of like
Yeah.
10,000.
General circulation in the town, and we've been waiting on legislative
To change,
for
right?
that for forever.
And my recollection, Nick, is that you would put in language to anticipate a possible change in the future.
Correct.
You take advantage.
Right.
We just brought in the language to allow for any notice consistent with the general statutes, so when they do change, we don't have
Yeah.
to, wait until the next charter.
To open it.
And then with regard to putting the notice on the website,
All notices are on the website.
Yeah.
You know, when we do notices for meetings or public hearings, it's in the public hearing and meeting section. Anything we do comes up.
does anyone see a need for further change to the charter for putting it on the website? Because I don't think it's necessarily saying that now it's charter.
I just wonder if there's a way,
Yeah.
if there's a mechanism, if there's a way to drive more traffic to the website. Because currently, if one follows social media, there are many references to "I didn't know" and many corresponding responses of, but it's on the website, which is responded to, oh, there's a website. So if there is a way, somehow, there's some kind of PR blitz, marketing blitz, something like that, to drive traffic to the website. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we, one thing we did this year, we did do a, every door direct mailer to everybody in town with the intention to drive them to the website to sign up for Everbridge and things like that, because then they would come to the website and use it. And also for the update, the Friday newsletter that goes out. Yeah, so we do have somebody now who does some communication works for us, and we try to do things that draw them back into our digital environment, but it's still something that's a work in progress. Takes a ton of time. We did hire a marketing firm recently. That's gonna be very driven towards even like outside, but also our residents. And so we're gonna be allocating like 5,000 a year just for that, to get, not only businesses, but get people connected. So we're working on it.
Excellent. Thank you.
I mean, I, as a business, a very small business owner, I've got to say that, people come into my store all the time and say, how did you know that? And I said, well, the town has a website. Oh, really? Like, what town doesn't have a website? Really? So, yes, the town has a website and you can sign up for a newsletter and blah, 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 blah. But it's not always people that are older that are saying that too. And that surprises me quite a bit. The number of young people that are really just not computer literate.
It's interesting because municipalities are very good about building a repository of information that's just going to be piece of the call on the website or whatever. We've tried very hard to be more, push out, and unless a part of our marketing campaign may do more of that to get people connected to us digitally. But it really is a very interesting dynamic to get people engaged, digitally, but we're trying. Yeah.
Okay, so then the other suggestion she had was to have the ad hoc Sustainable Bethel Commission, which is created by the board of selectmen, to be brought into the charter. And which is kind of the normal way that things are done, that the board of selectmen create a commission, and after so many years, it becomes logical that, okay, this is going to be something permanent, let's bring it in. I'm not quite sure that Sustainable Bethel has kind of had that track record yet.
Well, they won awards.
No, but I'm saying a track record for, is this something that we need forever? Or we wait another 4 years for the next charter revision, and at that time bring it up.
I would advocate for that. We were doing so much before, and I was like, well, we'll wait and see how this kind of comes, because it would actually be very helpful if we put it in the charter and then redo the ordinance. And because most of the time when you bring a commission into the charter, it's a very small piece. It's like, hey, this one is, here's how it's established. And some of the basics are there, but really it goes back to the ordinance. It refers back to it. But we can put term limits, because when the Sustainable Bethel was commissioned in the beginning, there were no term limits. It was very hastily put together the way they did it, and it was just kind of a mess.
It was created with 7 seats, and at one point there were 10 members.
Yeah, they went through and they ad hoc added people at a couple times, like you can remember it's for ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
Right, and they kept adding seats to it. And then,
But without
yeah,
changing the
the
ordinance.
10th never even was added in any of the meetings. It just kind of popped up one day. But it is something that we very easily could put in the charter, and I think it's worth it. We are going to utilize that. Remember, it used to be our energy committee. And sustainability is more of a bigger thing now. So it's beyond energy, but with us doing solar, I mean, they've been very effective at actually doing the work of the energy committee still, going out and finding opportunities for green energy and things like that. No cost to the town or very small cost. And then they're doing a lot of other stuff. I'm hoping they can do more with our organics you know, the transfer station and some of that stuff. And it's great because it's a real good place for people, kind of both parties, both ideologies to pair up on some of these things. It's not, you know, sustainability isn't always, you know, climate change, you know, but yeah, some of it is, right? And people from both sides can work on committees to do things together.
Yeah,
So
but the food recycling is a natural fit for that.
very much so. And, you know, should it work out that we acquire the Stony Hill Preserve property, there may be an opportunity for them to be in that as well because of the, you know, work with the garden clubs or with that. We need somebody to kind of help manage some of that. And sustainability is in that wheelhouse easy. So I think it really has, it has a lot of opportunity. I'd love to see it come in the chart. I just didn't really push for it. We were doing so many things.
So Nico Jordan also came and suggested that we create a conservation commission. And that's not really something that charter revision commissions do. That we'll take something like an existing ad hoc committee and pull it into the charter. But we don't, as a standalone committee, all of a sudden create something that the board of selectmen never initiated.
My concern with that is that the Inland Wetlands Commission used to be conservation, thank you. Just jump in anytime. It's the end of a long
Only when
day. It's
needed.
the end of a long day. No, but it used to be called the Conservation Commission, and I don't know whether we're gonna run afoul of any state statute that may or may not have changed that name. I'm just speaking, I'm not in favor of creating it generally. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not pushing for it. I think sustainability does what we need it.
I think putting that in the sustainable wheelhouse is good because from what I've learned about conservation commissions, I do have to start, but they kind of like, they turn almost like their own little land trust or their own little entity with the ability to go out and buy property and do a lot of stuff. And I think what we want to do is make sure that we're doing the basics of having open space, but taking it out of the town's hand, in a town our size. I don't know that I'm for that even yet. And to Tim's point, I think what we should do is investigate it. If the board of selectmen ever decides in that route, then we should do it and have a town meeting and go through all that. And focus on creating a commission versus just sticking the charter and lumping it in. But I totally agree with Nico. There's a need out there for the open space and tracking it and things like that. Maybe it used to be a little bit less, but we need to do something about it because we've not done a great job. Like we picked up all these little pieces of property and they aren't contiguous to anything and call them open space. But most of the time we're getting drainage ditches and things like that. And we do need to do something a little bigger. We have some things on the horizon that might work.
In addition to planning and zoning, having an open space fund and as a commission, looking at parcels and putting it on a list of priorities on what
That's
they
what the
should buy.
conservation commission would do.
Well, what I'm getting at is planning and zoning is already doing that. And they already have a fund, you know, and a way to create cash to do that.
Well, I think it's planning and zoning even has had some thought about separating this out.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And so the first request came to me from planning and zoning long before Nico brought it up.
You mean the fee in lieu of open space would then be
Right.
managed by the Conservation Commission?
Yes,
Wow.
as well as other monies and some things like that. There's a lot in statute that give them authority to do stuff. And that's my only concern so far because I just don't know all the answers yet. Nick, have you ever dealt with any Conservation Commission stuff?
No, I mean, we brought it up and I shared some materials. There is some limitations that I know that it's a creature of statute, but the legislative body can put limitations on what they actually control and do. Yeah, if you want me to investigate more, I certainly can. But I would go back to my research memo and see what I'm not exactly remembering what I pushed out.
Sure.
Now, are you envisioning this as advisory rather than any kind of?
That's what I would want.
Yeah, me too, because I just.
But that gets back to why sustainable method has the ability to work with other entities like zoning. And, I mean, right now, we're gonna have a lot of changes in planning and zoning because our director is leaving in the spring, it's retiring in March. So we're gonna have personnel changes, we're gonna have all kinds
Different
of stuff
visions,
going on.
yeah.
Yeah, so I just I want to wait and let the board select us dig into this and see like how we're gonna do it and do it by town meeting. and then kind of create it, see how it goes, and then bring it into the charter would be my hope. If it's something we want to do.
But are you thinking of having it be duties added to Sustainable Bethel or?
I think that might be the way to go for them, but right now, to John's point, I mean, technically planning and zoning doesn't. And they have the open space fund, and they have that.
And they're elected officials where it's not an appointment, you know, and if you're gonna ask planning and zoning in their regulations to take funds in lieu of, right, when there's a subdivision,
Right.
you know, I think it's a slippery slope, but then you take an appointed board to say how we're gonna spend those funds, you know?
Oh, it's advisory only is what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, no,
It'd be
because
really-
the elected
I would-
officials
I would
do
think-
something, the
Yeah.
advisory's advising.
Yeah, I would limit this on it.
So another layer, Alice, is what you're talking about, yeah.
But then there's the other piece of this.
It helps.
Help.
The other piece of this is very, very, very. Like, we've got a Sustainable Bethel group that is very active. They want to be there. I'd almost like to give these kinds of projects to people that we already have vetted and create a whole new entity, because it's hard to get people to step up. Really hard.
And it gives them meaning to stay with it, right, where they're not just sitting on a roster, you know,
Right.
yeah.
But it seems like there's going to be an evolving role for Sustainable Bethel, and then maybe it's not the time to bring it into the charter that ends up
Yeah.
cementing.
But remember,
the role.
but remember, the charter doesn't necessarily define the role. Because you can put it in the charter, there will be a Sustainable Bethel, and you can have a big picture piece of it. And then, you know, you put that statute or how's it wording, statute or code, town code, is what really dictates. So then that gives us, Board of Selectmen and the town meeting, the ability to kind of massage it along the way. And that's kind of where that power should lie. But I mean, I'd like to see it come to the charter at some point. If the commission doesn't want to do it, that's okay right now. That's really,
I would actually like, I agree, I would like to see it become part of it,
Sustainable, you mean?
sustainable, right? Precisely because it touches so many different aspects of town governance, town management. And, you know, as Dan says, the exact role, the exact what they do can be massaged with time. But I think that it's important to have it in there. We also have a group of people that has proven themselves. And they have proven that they can create something really wonderful, you know, winning this bronze award for Bethel. This isn't, you know, some kind of fly-by-night kind of thing. This has been really developing for years. And I think it would be appropriate. I think we tell something to other groups in town. Yeah, the town is responsive to this.
And to your point, Penny, I think they really have a passion for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as typically, 10 people on the, hard to know. But the fact that they have more people wanting to be involved means that as people move off, other people will transition in. I see the Sustainable Bethel Commission as really evolving over time and transitioning and changing and moving the committee at least. But we've got this group of people that's working so hard. Bring them in.
yeah. And remember, sustainability, I think we always go towards, you know, climate and all that. The sustainability has so much more.
Right,
We
exactly.
like that, they do things with like Bethel Arts. You know, they do things, so there really is a wide, if you look at what sustainability is for a community, there's a wide, you know, berth of things that they can do. And it's very active and they're actually doers.
Right.
So I think it adds a lot to the town. And again, they still do the energy stuff, which is super, super important because no matter how you slice it, energy and energy costs, I mean, those are huge for us. So down the line, I could see them doing what they used to do. I mean, remember that the energy committee was what worked on us getting the solar out the dump, or sorry, transfer station.
It's talking like an old counter.
Yeah, I mean, they do a lot more than just, you know, it's not just, it's not political. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm definitely in favor. And the other thing is, I mean, I think looking at it, establish it as a 9-person board. And then establish terms. that overlap. Where you can take the current people, you can say current people, boom, 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 they overlap over time. We could describe that. I don't think we do charter. I remember that when we do redo the code, maybe. But just put the basic, there'll be 9 people, terms will overlap.
Well, it started out with 7, the ordinance said 7, right?
No, well, what they did is in meetings, they went back and they voted. They got up to 9, and then somehow they added 10, and then we lost the 10th. So right now it says,
So when they passed the ordinance for 7.
Yeah.
Then you said they passed an amended
they didn't pass an ordinance, the Board of Selectmen voted to add people to it. I have.
So that doesn't change the ordinance.
It didn't change the ordinance, but they added people because it was an ad hoc commission. So somewhere in there, I believe they have the power. I believe they had the power. I mean, they did it. So I know, they didn't do the 10th one. But
9 is that's a big.
it is big because of the nature, well, because of the nature of the board and what they do. I think there's room for it. It's kind of like the library board's, what, 12? It's a huge,
15.
it's a huge.
Yeah, it's 12, and a prior Charter Revision Commission had suggested, hey, 12 is a lot.
Yeah.
And at that time, Alice Knapp said, no, we do a lot of subcommittees and we need a lot of.
And that's what this board is. They need the ability to have different kinds of people on it that can break out. And, it's always the 80-20 rule, right? You've got 20% of the people doing 80% of the work. Well, out of every board, you can give people projects that work for them, that they're passionate about. Because sustainability has a very big birth. There's a lot you can do with it. And I'd love to see, certainly more Republicans on it. Right now, we've got unaffiliated Democrats, mainly the Republican seat is empty.
Oh, really?
10, yeah, we don't have that.
Well, and the other thing was that without having term limits, then when Matt had done the initial appointment,
Yeah.
then that party mix got locked in.
Yeah.
Forever.
It did. So technically it did. It was a weird way they did it. And by the way,
They did the fire commission the same way.
Right.
So that with no term limits.
Can I just ask a question about term limits? What other commissions?
Oh, I'm saying literally your term. So there are some boards that have unlimited terms.
Meaning,
Once you're in,
You serve for life.
serve as what you want.
and you're never reelected, you're never,
You're not reappointed.
Unless you quit. And then you reappoint.
You're initially appointed, then you serve forever.
Yeah.
Unless you resign.
It doesn't change with the election. I mean, the next, just say a whole new selectman board comes in.
No. With our appointed boards, they're not political that way. Our appointed boards normally have terms. It's just when they established this, they never put an end. They put it in and said, okay.
Well, you look at some of the people that are involved. Let's say they want to get involved for 6 years. I mean, I don't want to start limiting their membership just because we arbitrarily pick 4 years.
I said term limit, I didn't mean term limit, I meant
Well,
terms.
So,
So right now they're on and they have
Right.
term
right,
limits,
and that's
which means they serve
that's right,
forever.
right.
Forever if they want to.
But no, I would,
But then it also
I
means,
was kidding.
I'll establish a 4-year term. I would give them a 4-year term.
Tim, thank you for
That
that.
you could, and then we get reappointed. Like, so this way the terms would cycle.
Right.
Right, they overlap. So you put it in like, you're gonna have 3 of the people, their term expires in 2 years. You're gonna have another 3 of the people, their term expires in 3 years. And another group, they expire in 4
even
years.
No, they have to be.
2, 4, and
No,
6.
2, 4, and 6.
No, with appointed boards, you don't have to line them up with elections because they can.
They have to hit the municipal.
Well,
year.
well, that's
No,
true.
no,
They
they
can-
don't.
No, it's for an appointed board, he's right.
Appointed boards.
If we're appointed board,
The current selectman's gonna,
Oh,
first selectman's
oh,
gonna do
And so if
that.
it's 9, it could be, how about a 3-year term? And 3
Yeah,
come out
so the
every
first 3 might have a 2-year term, the second 3 would have a 3-year term, and the last 3 would have a 4-year term. And then after that, when each person gets nominated again, it's 4-year term. So what ends up happening is that then that just cycles it out.
Yeah.
So they're not all expiring at one time. If we had that happen this year, people of the Public Site and Building Commission, I don't know what happened. They lost track with the terms were, so they turn around like they put one back 2 years in a row. But all the terms were messed up. So we had this year, we had a whole bunch of people expiring this year and retiring. And so it was just like, it decimated the commission. So we're jumping, to now reestablish it where the terms overlap again. That makes any sense and really stay on top of it, which, we're doing.
Can I just ask a question, go back to something a little more basic? How is it determined what commissions are elected and what commissions are appointed? And I ask that as somebody who truly doesn't, I don't know how that happens.
Well, the charter says which are elected, which are appointed. But are you saying, how does someone determine which is which?
How was it
When it's
determined?
No, she's deciding
How
which.
was it?
So when the charter was put together and continually being reviewed, how is it determined which commissions are appointed and which commissions are elected?
So the charter, unless there's some state statute involved, the charter determines it. And for example, for town clerks can be appointed or elected. So our charter says that our town clerk is elected. But there's enabling legislation from the state that would allow us to make it an appointed position.
Not to get too deep in it, but the best example right now of the decision to be made now or someday is fire commission. Whether they should be elected or appointed. Right now being appointed makes a lot of sense because we're doing volunteer organizations. It's not the same where you have a town entity that there were like in many times in legislative, cities and town where a commissioner or something may oversee an entity like a board or like a department, police commission, right? And in this way, the police commission actually do a lot of things, they have a lot of power. The sole traffic authority, they're the person who does fire and fire, and they have things established that they have to do. I think because the board of fire right now, or the fire departments are volunteer, there's a whole other little piece of that we're trying to establish, like I would say, more input from the Board of Fire Commission. But it's probably not ready to be elected yet. Now, if someday we have our own fire departments, like we are a town fire department, we may end up having a fire commission someday that's elected. But I think that's the one thing I've run up against now that say, okay, well, there's a dilemma. Like how far is that line? Like I would not take St. Bethel and make them elected. They're advisory boards. All of them are advisory boards. Even public site building is another. It's very much an advisory board. I don't think I'd want to elect it.
The Arts and Recreation, Youth Commission,
Yeah.
Commission on Aging.
Yeah.
Those are all our appointed boards.
And that
Great
also
question.
opens the door for people to volunteer directly. I mean, they don't have to go through that whole election process if they just plain want to volunteer.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
But it goes through the municipality here. Because for instance, some municipalities have zoning departments or planning and zoning that are appointed members, not.
Well, the city of Stanford has appointed.
Yeah.
Planning and zoning.
Yeah, because they have controversy over it all the time.
Good question.
Just to
Thank
just to clarify the whole issue with your appointments and terms. What you're saying basically is if you're appointed by the authority, whoever's appointing on a board, then say it's a 4-year term, and then that term matures, that person could be reappointed, or they could just not be reappointed.
Right.
So essentially, they could go on for 8, 10, 12 years, whatever it is, so long as the appointing authority gives them the nod and they accept it. Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I to some people don't like it. My attitude has always been that if you're working on a board and you like it, I don't care what party you are, if you want to stay there, you're doing a good job, I would agree with you. That's what I try to do the best I can. Because appointed boards are at their advisory. And we got, to Alice's point, we got people who are working hard, and I think, we want to keep those folks. We don't want to help them. If they like it and they're doing a good job. So yeah, if you do go to the sustainable Bethel, I think it is worth bringing in at some point. If you want to do it now, it's great. I certainly support it. I think it should be a nine-member board, not 10. Not that was never approved. I think it's a good number, and I think it would function well given the subcommittees.
But again, getting back to it, we do or don't have that scenario that I explained. We have that term.
No, we don't have any term limits.
No term limit.
No term.
There's a limit to your
I got it,
term.
I got it.
As opposed to a term limit.
But we don't have that now. So if someone's appointed, they're perpetual, so long as they want to do
On
it.
sustainable
They have to
Bethel.
be reappointed.
Regardless of appointment.
For
Yeah.
sustainable Bethel.
But they have to be reappointed.
Okay. they
Like,
have-
so good example with youth commission. Youth commission this year, there were some people who wanted to stay on, some people wanted to roll off. So we had, let's say three people expiring, right? So you look at those folks, you call them on, and say, are you interested in staying? Great, we find out if they're, and then we call the parties and say, what do you think? You know, can you be, and then they're reappointed to stay for another term.
Well, we also have that with our elected positions anyway, because you can get elected to a 4-year term and run again. In many cases, I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
But just what with the issue, is Sustainable Bethel never had a term assigned. So once they were in, there was no term, there was no, not Linda, the term didn't end.
Right.
It's like having a.
Term limit says you can't
Yeah,
run
exactly.
8 times in a row. Having a term end date is, they have to be reappointed. That's as simple as
That's
that.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, following up question, how does one add something to the charter? Let's say that, you know, we have this discussion, we have a consensus, and yeah, this is a really good idea, let's do it. What's the mechanism?
You're gonna make a motion
We look
someday.
at the charter, we look at the charter, we'd say, okay, let's see, I'm trying to find the appointed board is right.
I think I may have just
But
done it.
but what you do is,
Yeah.
you go up and you say, okay.
That guy bills at 300 an hour.
This section goes up to 3-16, we're gonna write 3-17.
Right.
And then we just create a new,
Before we hand this off to the selectmen.
but it wouldn't be 3, it's in the appointed.
I think we come up with the language and all that to do what you.
Oh, here's the appointed. So the appointeds are 7.
What is it, Tim?
So 7. So the appointed boards are Article 7. Let's take a quick look at Article 7 here.
So, and C715 is.
Okay, so yeah, so there's C7-15. So then we would simply add a C7-16. We wouldn't renumber it to make it alphabetical like whatever else.
But to Penny's point, I think this board or this commission would do a consensus to think if there's an appetite for it. And then once the consensus wins the vote, then we would ask the attorney to then draft something so that weeks or months down the road, we would then put it as a motion, just like any board, and get a second and then vote on it.
Thank you.
So where we have. Well, I don't know. I mean, we had tabled the 5-year term. Audits we kind of set aside. Okay, so Sustainable Bethel. Does someone want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to add Sustainable Bethel to our charter as C7-16 and ask the consulting attorney to draft appropriate language.
Well, I don't know that we need a motion for this. I think we just need a consensus vote to then
Well,
take
that's
it to
true.
the attorney.
We just,
So then, right, because I don't think it should be legal motions yet,
That's how we
even though it might go that way.
operating under this.
Well, that's
Charter Commission.
yeah.
Which I,
Shown of hands.
Wait, it actually would be our first vote
Yeah.
on something other than minutes.
okay, then I just send my vote.
You know, your motion.
Your motion.
So,
And I take that for second.
so we'll
So
do,
you killed your motion.
so much, so that is it. I
All right, raise
mean,
your hand.
initially, I
Yeah.
was against bringing them into the charter. But I think, especially since there's this evolving nature possibility, but my feeling is bringing in the charter, just like we did the fire commission, can clean up a big mess that we had by ordinance. Where we didn't have limitations on the number of years to a term, didn't have terms at all, and had a growing number of members on board. So this would kind of solidify that and make it better.
It cleans it up.
And it would bring it back to, then kind of brings it back to the being subject to the majority representation as well.
It would.
But also give
Because
us
that's a bit of a mess too.
authority to do a certain, you know, to really speak, to really be able to speak to some of the issues that they've been trying to bring forward to our benefit. I mean, they're an amazing group of people.
Yeah,
Kim brings up a good point, though. It might change the makeup to be immediate. Because you'd be
Yeah.
subject to minority
But I
representation.
think right now they're in line because of the number of Democrats and unaffiliated. Yeah, and the one, where there's one Republican vacancy. And I think really that might only bring you a 9. I have to go look it up again to see where they're at.
Yeah, and we have been looking at it saying, okay, well, this is because on the town clerk's chart, it says maximum of 7. And I say, okay, yeah, there's a vacancy, but there's 9 people.
Yes.
So
No,
there aren't really anything.
but remember the appointed, what the minority representation for appointed boards is in the charter. And it's different than Lenten. So I think it's 9 or more. There's a number.
I think it's 5.
Is it? That's why I can do it.
So does the board also in consensus think it should be a 4 to 9? That's the next thing, you know,
Oh, a board of 9.
if we're gonna ask the attorney to draft something, we might as well make it the best we could.
Take a look, as opposed to say department write-ups that are in the charter that are more broad and generic. All the appointed boards do have some general parameters, which include, terms, years on the term, whether they're overlapping or not, that the board of selectmen appoints and things of that nature. So I would just need a few parameters like that and then I'd be able to draft something like this.
Well, if we do 9 and we do 3-year terms, then you could have 3 come out every
Yeah,
year.
the 9 comes in the 3.
9 4-year terms where it comes, where the first, as Dan was talking about, the 2, the 3, the 4.
Yeah, how would you-
And then they start to, and you just have to
Right.
bring them in that way, so
Yeah.
they all have 4-year terms.
Yeah, somehow with our library board, we have 4-year terms, 12, and there's 4, 4, 4, and nothing. So 1 year, none
It's a
come out.
cleanup, yeah.
So somehow there was probably an appointing error and the town clerk's never been able to find it. I guess they,
Yeah, I don't remember there's an issue with the library. I have to go back and look.
Yeah.
I've looked through most of the boards last year and we've made corrections along the way. The one I didn't worry about was public site building because they didn't have anybody last time.
But aren't most of our boards 4-year terms?
Most are, there's a few too though. There's a few.
Well, yes, that I know,
Yeah.
but no 3-year term.
Yes, it's one with a 3-year term.
Right, it's always.
The housing authority has a 5-year term.
Elected, not
Yeah.
appointed.
Housing authority 5-year term.
Yeah, we do have one with a 3-year term. I just can't do it at the moment.
Appointed?
One,
Yeah, but that's okay, because,
yeah, I can go get, actually.
No,
yeah, I don't, because we're just doing
irrespective of that, I
consensus.
still
Yeah.
think 4 years gives you enough to sink your teeth, back to the whole argument of time to sink your teeth.
And also with appointed terms, we have people resign. Like if they want in 2 years, 3, whatever, what we have to do is make sure we just track them and we replace them with somebody that fills the remainder of the term.
Right.
So it's not a big deal to have somebody for your term. It actually just makes it easier for the paperwork.
All right, so if that's it, I can go down my list of proposals from the public.
Well, did you take a consensus vote to make sure? It sounds like this board was thinking to do that.
Is that, everyone's okay with 9-member board, single Bethel comes in, and we have, it's 4-year terms, and then you phase
Oh,
them in.
I thought Dan said 3, he like.
No, I just mentioned, we're talking about 3. I just talking the first 3.
Does
Oh,
the first
go
2-year
for-
term, 3-year term, 4-year term, so
Yeah,
they all
it's-
stack,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And I'll just throw this out to you guys, just so you have a sense, I mean, not to take time, but, here we go. So, Cable Advisory Council, we're not really doing right now, but,
There's no such thing.
We used to.
But again,
thanks.
but here's an example, so there's an
That's an
example
example.
of an appointment with no term. Look,
No, they actually-
no, I think Kitty Grant's on it.
Yeah.
So,
His name's on it.
There's names on it.
So Commission on Aging, we've got 4-year term. Constables, 2-year. Economic Development, 5-year. Emergency Medical
No,
Services
EDC
is a whole other
that's
ballgame. Ethics is 3 years. That's the odd one. Board of Fire right now is 4. It's your, Housing Authority is 5. Insurance Pension 4. Library 4. Parks and Rec 4. Public Site Building 4. Public Utilities is 2-year. Right now, indefinite. let's see here, youth commissions 2, and youth commission alternates 2. By the way, I would say we have 4 sometimes.
So we have an example of a
That's kind of,
3-year, so we have an example on ethics of a 3-year term.
Yeah.
If we did a 3-year term, it'd be 3, 3, 3, and hopefully nobody gets mixed up.
I'm open, it's not that hard to do a 4, I'd like to see as much as possible, I think it really helps. By the way, you can do like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, however you want to do it. And then eventually you'll get a 4-year term. However you want to break it up in the beginning is just how you write it into the charter and the code.
I think we say overlapping terms, and then it's up to the board of selectmen to implement.
I think that's okay. I've just read it more often where they've said, hey, this is our ground to do it, but you're right, the overlapping terms, the board of selectmen will decide how.
Yeah, because otherwise you're only really, that language is only applicable for the first onset and then it stays with the charter.
And I always think of that as implementing language,
You're right.
which then you kind of want to pull
Yeah,
out,
right.
other people like leaving it in.
You just put the terms will be overlapping.
Yeah, 4-year
Yeah, fix
terms
it.
overlap.
And then it requires us now, when we set the terms,
The
we
initial
have to create an overlap.
Okay.
Well, I think the attorney's got some direction here, don't you think?
I think so. Everyone's satisfied there. So the next, we had Brad Colt. He simply said he was against the 4-year term and the 5-member board of selectmen. Nico, we talked about already. Paul Zakowski was against the 5 years. 5-member board of selectmen. He supported the 4-year term. And then he thought the treasurer should be involved in budget review and also on the insurance and pension.
So noted.
Right.
But I just don't really see the charter getting involved with,
Public comment is public comment is public comment.
Absolutely.
and he can, if the first selectman wanted to get the treasurer involved, he could,
By all means.
he can
bring it in.
invite them into meetings, which really happened prior to the budget presentations. All right, so
Tim, before we move on, again, coming from a place of ignorance in the town system, what is the difference in the town between the treasurer and the comptroller? It's not controller, it's comptroller.
I would think
Controller is what I want to be.
The comptroller knows everything.
controller, yes, it's a paid position, and they're basically considered the director of finance.
Who is that, a comptroller?
Comptroller.
Comptroller, got it.
So
That's Brad Perry.
that's Brad. Used to be Bob Kozlowski, and yeah, they basically are the director of finance,
Okay.
and a fancy name. And then
What does the treasurer writes the check?
is the treasurer.
Ceremonial. That's it, ceremonial.
Their name is on there, and they're supposed to come in and look at invoices and make sure that there's, everything is on the up and up, let's say.
And he gets $6,000.
Well, they also oversee bond sales. don't
Right,
they?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Oversee what was it?
Yeah.
They oversee bond sales.
Well, they have to sign. I mean, essentially, they don't really oversee it so much, but they're supposed to
Oh,
be there inside.
but they should be.
Well, the truth is, between the people we hire to go out and do that, and then
Right.
our comptroller,
Comptroller.
myself,
He just went through it, and I don't think that. all
most of
of
the time when we have treasurers, it's more of an oversight position. It's not, our treasurers are not able to know anything about bonds.
it-
But they could stop the process,
And as a historical
Probably, yeah.
point,
technically.
a charter revision commission long ago brought up a proposal to maybe eliminate the treasurer position. I'm not even sure where that's even possible in the state of Connecticut, but it was actually Dr. Fan who came and fought it and said, no, this is money well spent because you want someone in there who's elected and reviewing invoices and comparing it to.
Well, and they used to take the money to the bank. The treasurer used to, which they don't do that
The
anymore.
bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very much an oversight.
Okay.
But to be fair to the current treasurer, I've heard and had conversations where he has figures in his head, you know, that costs this. So it's not like it's ceremonial, like I'm having fun. You know, he's looking at invoices at some point.
Okay.
He's not controlling a budget or putting a budget together.
No, it's very much, it's very much an oversight
Yeah.
position. Like these things. He'll pop in my office and tell me, hey, we should be looking at this, you know? So again, the main audit though is done by a third party professional auditing firm, that, but as he sees things over time and looks at the invoices, he's supposed to let us know if something was awry.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Uh,
or she.
And Dan, actually, you had the next proposal from the public. I think it's maybe last month. You said that you wanted to add the ability to create I guess within the health department, create a health district.
Well, and the question was, yeah, will our charter allow us if we wanted to? I'll be honest, I'm not sure we will or won't. It doesn't, I mean, I'm researching it. I don't know that it's gonna be a good thing for us.
And I'm not sure whether you could already do it.
So, I mean,
for
that's a
example,
question.
what did planning and zoning created a TOD? Charter doesn't say that you do it.
Well, there's a lot of rules and state statutes associated with the Commissioner of Public Health approving our system, because we would have to be approved by the commissioner. There's all these different things, but our charter is very clear that says you will have a health director. The question is, can we just appoint anybody, the health director from like another town or some places have done that?
Oh, that's what you meant. So having a district where you could pull another certified health director in.
That we could do, or we could, the question is, would we like to go to the district? I think he wanted to say something. You moved into it.
Yeah, I did look up into this, and this is directly under state statute too. And I was actually surprised on how long ago the health district statutes were put in place. I think they date back to like 50s or 60s. So we had a reference in our charter under the health director that basically health director has a 4-year term, and it referenced a certain state statute or state statute section. I don't think it matters that it is a specific reference, because the following section, the following chapter, specifically addresses health districts. And I have language, but the statute.
Districts like judge a probate district?
No.
Oh, that's what I thought, right.
Explain what a health district is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's basically a regionalized.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, like the probate.
Judge a probate.
So kind of sort of like, but we have inspectors and we have like, so right now there's a health district in Newtown, and they're with Roxbury and Bridgewater. So it's 3 towns in a health district.
And if Reading wanted to give up theirs, they
You
could
could
come
use
into ours.
this
Well,
district.
the closest
Yeah,
one that
our
we
district.
had is when we had training that was Reading, Ridgefield, and Bethel for weapons of mass destruction, because Laura got a grant for that, this as a district,
Well, you can
as a
do,
group.
yeah, you can do a group, but see, we're not a health district. The health district, then the other part of this, the health district is actually run by a board. So let's say we created a health district for our own, Bethel, Reading, Ridgefield. Then we would have a board, and based on our population, how many members we get on that board. In Newtown, right, there's Newtown, Roxbury, Bridgewater, and there's probably like 3 of them are Newtown, and then maybe there's 1 from the others, because you get 1 per 10,000 people. So we'd have 2 members. If we joined Newtown, we would have 2 members on that board. But the board would now run our health district, not here.
So it's not like the probate judge, because we don't have that
More to it.
for that reason.
And there would be a regionalized health director. So who would oversee the district. And what I was saying, so I think what Dan's question was, so we have specific language in our charter that calls for a municipal health director, a localized health director, and they have a 4-year term. If for some reason in the future we wanted to opt into a district, or you can actually create a district with adjacent towns or neighboring towns, would that be problematic that you have this municipal health director that's in the charter? And my answer is no, because there is specific state statute that says if a municipality opts into a health district or creates a health district, once that is set up, that board's created and a director appointed to the regionalized health district, the local municipal health director is automatically terminated.
But she's not appointed. She's a department head.
She's a department.
Yeah, according to our.
So you
charter.
have to appoint every 4 years, even though she's an employee.
Yes, and by the way, if you don't want to reappoint, well, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to reappoint. And then the Commissioner of Health has to approve the appointment, and
And that comes up to a selectman vote every 4 years.
yes,
That actually tracks the state statute under the municipal health director too.
Yeah.
So that.
Wow, that's a big can to open, yeah.
yeah. There's a couple of, well, in the charter, there's a couple of our positions that are actually appointed. Building inspectors actually appointed, or excuse me, building official is appointed every 4 years.
I didn't realize the 4 year thing where
Yeah.
it's a relook every 4 years.
Yeah, so like, for instance, our health director is up in January 18th of 26. And by the way, what happens too, they didn't track some of the appointments. For one thing, they didn't do all her appointments for a period of time. It's sort of crazy. And they reappointed her, I think, in 18 or something.
And did that start the 4 year calendar?
Yeah.
when you
so
finally
last
figured it
time,
out?
Whoever did that, 22, whatever year that, 22, I guess, since 4 years. In 22, somebody figured out, oh, they hadn't reappointed her in a long time, so they appointed her.
And then it starts the calendar of 4 years,
Right.
yeah.
Same with like municipal agent, we have to have a municipal agent by law. We could have a child municipal agent, we have one for the elderly. Those are all actually appointed things. But what's weird for the building official and for the health director, if they're not reappointed, they're no longer an employee.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but obviously we want to keep qualified people, but
Yeah, no, obviously, yeah. But I didn't know there was an out that way, yeah.
So my only suggestion to kind of ponder, if you look at C 8-6, which is the director of, it's, this is the Board of Selectmen shall, according to the provisions, and then it goes on to mention the specific state statute, provisions of section 19A-200 of the Connecticut General Statutes. In many sections of the charter, we keep it broad and just keep, according to or pursuant to state
Statutes, yeah.
We can just eliminate, and I don't know if it necessarily is permanent, but creating a little bit more flexibility, eliminate the specific reference and just keep it pursuant to the provisions of Connecticut General Statutes. I think it lessens the argument that the health director has a position in the event we need to choose a regionalist.
It falls back to the state statute anyway.
Yeah, and there is specific state statute that says if we opt in and we have the ability to opt into a region or a regionalized health district, the municipal health director is terminated on that purpose.
by the way, that person can still be hired by the health district.
Oh, absolutely, of course,
That
yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
If you merge into a health district, oftentimes you take the people you have and they may try to do something with the director, but it's at that point, it's up to the health district.
And the board to elect.
They're,
Yeah, the health district board, yeah.
Dan, last time you said you were looking into, is that something that I think that is on the horizon? I could share some of my experience, health director, health district where I've worked for 30 years. But I gotta tell you, it's really, it works well that you're available to a lot of state funds because you're a combined entity. And, I don't know, it just seems to work. And there's a lot of good reasons for it. Is that something you're actively?
we can certainly talk about that outside. Yeah, I'm actively looking. My last couple of meetings weren't the best. Looking at, I'm kind of, I've got more concerns. I've talked to folks who've been in health districts and left,
Right.
and why.
They're losing a little bit of local control.
There's a lot of local control,
Yeah, but-
but that's outside the scope of the guess. And I just want to know if it's something we can do, and I want the charter to allow us flexibility if we ever wanted to, or down the line, something we wanted to.
I mean, my point is exactly this, though.
Yeah.
Is that something that we should take into further consideration now as we're doing our job?
It's outside the scope of the Charter Revision Commission, whether to or not to have a health district.
It is.
Yeah, it's actually by state statute, vote of the legislative body. So it wouldn't be something that we.
Wouldn't be in addition to, whatever, 7.17.
No, that's nothing to do.
But your changes keep us from running up against conflict.
That's the only reason, yeah, because you're right, looking at it, and then I would hate to find out, oh, we can't do it. Like, there was a cost savings and it was good for us and a cost savings, I should say. And by the way, part of it may be, to his point, if we want to do regionalized with Reading and Richfield, and we have the seat here, it does open up more, and we would have some control here. But even then, I mean, people who've owned health districts have left for a lot of reasons, so I just wanted to know if you had the capability, because we were looking at it, but there's a lot of pitfalls, just to be honest, a lot of pitfalls. So, that was it. I think the question is, you want to strike that piece of the,
Yeah.
just section 19A 200 of the connect, and just leave the connectional statutes.
That was my only suggestion.
Perfect. All right, so go that route.
Does that require a consensus or something?
Well,
Yeah.
is anyone opposed to it? Let's try it out. No? Okay. So then tonight we had an email from Frances Pulley about the Ethics Commission. She is on the board, has been on there for a while. And she's proposing that instead of having 5 members, it should go to 5 members plus 2 alternates. Now, currently, and this is in section 7-8, Ethics Commission, it says, no member of said commission shall hold or campaign for any public office or have held public office during the 12 months immediately prior to appointment, or hold office in any political party or political committee, like town committee. So because of that, they're looking for people who are not involved in existing boards, whether appointed or elected, and they don't want people who just came out of office to then go on this commission. We're looking for people who are really kind of on their own. They may be affiliated with the party, but they're not
Active.
active and political. So, but what she's suggesting is if you add 2 alternates, then you can eliminate the exclusions of not being able to serve on a town committee, run for an office, or anything else. But I just think it undermines the idea of the Ethics Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't read it that way, because you still can't have one be an alternate or anything. It's when you have a conflict of interest because of maybe something else.
Yes.
Like what if, I don't know, something happens and then there's somebody who has the ethics issue, there's a connection between that person and somebody on the board of some kind, then sometimes that's when you want to recuse yourself. You might want an alternate. Like on planning and zoning, that happens a fair amount. Like there's somebody who's done business with somebody or something.
Or went to church with them. Okay, I took it as they were associated
No,
with it like a town committee.
But it's, you really look at the last sentence of that star. It says, we don't want to lose potential board members to a commission that meets rarely. So she wants people who are on the Ethics Commission to be able to serve on other elected or appointed boards.
I'm not
Or,
reading it that way.
well,
I see what you're saying.
I've had a lot of talk with her, so I know what she means.
Oh, okay.
But look at that last sentence.
Try to reimagine as you say that.
No, go down. We don't want to lose potential board members to a commission, she's talking about the Ethics Commission, that meets rarely.
Oh, yeah.
That's what she's, so what
If they
she,
meet rarely, how could they not get 5 people there?
Well, I think that's
that's what she's saying is if you add the alternates, then if those, let's say you're serving on planning and zoning and there's an ethics complaint against planning and zoning.
Or the department head, right.
Department, or wherever. So you don't have that, but what she's suggesting is that you create these alternates so that the board members, the 5 current board members and future board members would be allowed to serve on other boards, whether elected or appointed.
I think that's a slippery slope to go.
I do
Yeah.
too.
So I don't.
I think the ethics board was written that exact way to prevent any influence
No.
from anybody in town. So I mean, I appreciate her public comment, but I think our charter currently reads really well for our ethics
Yeah.
commission.
I'd like to make a comment on that. Maybe could you explain, I mean, I don't know what the story is, but these are pretty forceful words, unwildly, unworkable, dangerous, all of these kind of things. So there's obviously some real background, or at least in her opinion, that there's a real problem with the commission. And I may add, at our last meeting, I did mention that I was going to do some more research, because I think that our current language for our ethics commission needs to be, discussed, thought out a little bit more, because basically, unless you have a financial conflict, that's really the only thing that.
Well, you're talking about the ethics code. You're talking about the ethics code.
I understand.
And this is,
I understand that. And so but one document works hand in hand with the other. Like this is the fathering document. It shouldn't recreate the ethics code, but there are things that should maybe be in this passage as it is in other towns that are far expanding than what is in ours, that I think should be considered, is my point. And so it's twofold. One, I'm gonna bring forth, hopefully the next meeting, some items for discussion after reviewing some other people's charters regarding ethics that expands beyond the financial conflict, that speaks about conduct of elected officials and also employees of the town. Obviously, there's a balance there that has to take place, but I would this person sent this thing here, on the other side, where what is going on here? I mean, for somebody to call the ethics commission dangerous, unwild, and unworkable, what's the background? What's going on?
Well, oh, go ahead. Lee.
I don't,
I get a feeling that there's something going on within this commission that may or may not have anything to do with our purview. I mean, there seems to be,
Very specific.
I kind of want to strip away the emotion.
this was sent by one person, not they.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
I think finding somebody to serve on the ethics commission that isn't involved in any of the boards or commissions in town or on either town committee might be hard enough. There are people in town that would like to do this. It doesn't meet very often, and it would be great. I'm not sure 7 members makes sense when you only have 5 people to begin with, but if there's an emergency session that's brought up for some reason, 7, and that makes more sense. I think that's really, I have no feeling about it one way or another. The one thing that does strike me about this, and from what I've heard from people, is that the ethics commission ought to be counseled on what they can and cannot speak of outside the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That I think they need some training. And that's what I'm hearing here, that may or may not be an accurate assessment. But what I'm hearing is that people are maybe just a little too casual talking about what goes on there, and that it could hurt somebody professionally, and that's not a problem. So and that's not our purview, that's really more you setting up a training session for all boards and commissions, and ethics being one of them. Possibly, I don't know, but that's kind of my feeling with this, is that something has gone awry that may or may not have ever gone awry before and may not ever go awry again. But I think it's something that was important to bring up that may not be our thing.
And they may need special training periodically as well on the ethics and their role.
It's like they're going to do
it's not the
executive
same
session.
as running a meeting.
So what
And
happens,
what that means.
Right.
a few times a year, they don't do anything unless there's a case. And they do have the town attorney available to them to talk about these things. And they can be part of the training each year for FOI and understand all that. And anything else that we want to deem as behavior that we want to go after and say that's not suitable can be done by the board of selectmen through ordinance. That's in our current code. Right now, a lot of it's financial. It's taking things of value. We haven't addressed like what happens if you are arrested and that doesn't go down a whole other road, because now you're going to be looking at an elected person and saying, well, can the ethics board bring charges or something and kick you out of office? That's a slippery slope.
Well, and that's why I mentioned it, it is difficult, because if you're dealing with
let's just say, a town employee, someone makes a complaint that their conduct was, whatever, aggrieved, they're aggrieving the conduct of an employee. Well, is it really a matter of a personnel issue, or does it go far beyond that scope of their action? So is it necessarily something that the Ethics Commission should take up, or is it something that should be referred to the personnel director, the selectman, whoever it is in the town to hear it? Maybe it starts with the Ethics Commission and then it gets referred. But I think that, sometimes in town government, people in these positions serve a real purpose. Because, things can get kind of closed networks, party politics, personal relationships. So you work with somebody for 25 years and someone's making a complaint and you kind of say to yourself, well, that's good old Joe. We know. Well, maybe it's far beyond that. And these things sometimes need a good look. And secondly, I think, it comes down to the training, like you had matters, like you had said, they need to be properly guided. So I just go back to our first meeting, there was someone came here and he was agreeing with the conduct of somebody, and he was pretty forceful. I mean, somebody come down and make that. So I think it deserves a look.
But if you look at the ethics, you need to read the ethics code.
Yes, I did.
And if you look at it, they have the ability to do an opinion. And they decide whether or not it's something they should be able to hear or not hear, or whether it gets kicked back to the town.
Right.
But that is not for the charter, to be honest. It's
7-8.
It's not for the charter.
The charter under 7-8 already has that they are responsible for administering the ethics code. And it says the commission shall periodically review the ethics code and recommend appropriate revisions to the Board of Selectmen. So I think it's really high time for them to kind of review.
And if it does that too, it does go to town meeting.
Right, yeah, I mean, there's always protections, like, another thing I want to mention, if you're elected, if you're a town employee, by default, you better have thick skin, and that comes with it, because you raise your right hand, and that's just the way it is, you have to accept it. Public ridicule is sometimes good, and you gotta accept it. So, I understand someone saying, oh, it could ruin someone's reputation, this and that, but you gotta understand, just like a fireman, policeman, selectman, you're gonna get people that are not gonna be happy with you. And you gotta understand that when you raise your right hand, that these things are gonna go on. So there has to be a balance.
Well, listen, this is one person who put this forth.
I got
There
it.
are rules to confidentiality
Mhm.
that are exempt from FOI.
And is she not an attorney?
She's not an attorney.
No, she's not.
She,
Oh, no.
I don't know.
she's
I don't
actually,
know.
she's a professor,
Fran?
Brandon.
Oh, she's a professor.
So she's a professor and she has taught ethics before. So when she,
Which, by the way, is one of the reasons I think she was recommended.
so, and a long time ago, she wanted to come on ethics. We only had one opening and it was John Kellens.
Yeah.
And he was the chair, wanted to be reappointed. Well,
The ethics commission has functioned very well. We've had very few big issues, but when they've happened, the ethics commission handled them. Yeah.
And that may be the case, but it sounds as though something has her very concerned.
This is one person and.
Yeah.
No, I just,
Yeah.
I understand that there's, it's enough for somebody to sit down, take the time, write this sort of.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything we can do.
Yeah, but we should look at the code. I mean, that's what. the
so
board of
there's,
selectmen has
there
to
seem to be two pieces of her comments. One is expanding and including alternates
Mhm.
with the purpose, the stated purpose, that then everyone on the commission could then serve on appointed and elected boards. I don't think that's a good idea.
I think it's a terrible idea.
But that's her proposal.
Sure.
Again, pointing out that one sentence makes it very clear that's exactly what she wants.
Any
Then,
other issues?
then she wants professional counsel. So the town council is available to her, and actually Melanie O'Brien used to serve on the ethics commission. So she certainly has the training and experience to be the advisor, unless she's the subject
Quite honestly, between us chickens, I think they just need some TLC.
Mhm.
Frankly, I think they just need a little bit of training and a touch in once in a while. And just to remind them what, you know, that's really the sense that I get with this is that somehow there's some lack of direction that somebody's having an issue with.
We are looking for new people.
Right.
So I'll put it out there if anybody's interested.
So anyway, but I think I'd love to see this group. Again, they meet as needed, but they're directed by the charter to periodically review the code. And I think it's time to do. I'm not sure whether it's ever been changed since adopted.
I didn't-
35 years ago.
I was looking at it a second ago. I don't know. I have to look to see what it's-
Well, I really appreciate that you took the time to
Yeah.
make it because these are all discussions that we need to have and it's good to have it on our radar.
So. All right, and I guess the other thing we had letters, so we had Lisa Berg had submitted the letter regarding resignations, but I think we've already addressed that.
Yeah, we discussed that.
And then
That was a matter of protocol
Well, she had-
procedure.
she had two letters, and one was to kind of correct I guess she was looking at the board of selectmen recommendation.
Right.
And so we kind of addressed it by making sure that resignation letters have to go to Lisa Berg. If they go to
A town committee.
the first selectman's office, or if they go to the chair of the board or commission, that they are directed to get it to Lisa.
Because the resignation starts when Lisa accepts it.
And then she had one other letter, follow-up letter, that I guess she was a little confused. She thought that there was a conflict within the charter, but it was actually a conflict between the charter and the code, and the code needed to be updated. So that's outside of our purview. Then we had a letter from Dr. Carver suggesting that we change our budget referendum process so that if there's less than 15% turnout for referendum, if the budget goes down with less than a 15% turnout, then it's presumed to have passed. And, whoa.
No.
Boy, that'll go over.
Wow.
Can you do that again?
If
Hit that unbelievable penny go.
it is.
No,
So
I'm trying-
in Wilton,
I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
there
Right.
are two towns, Wilton and maybe the other one was Richfield or Dane. And they basically have a problem with low turnout. And they said, they have in their charter that if the turnout for a budget referendum is less than 15%, then regardless of whether it passes or it doesn't pass, it's just automatically approved and the budget.
It was approved, whatever the legislative body approval stands.
So if 12% show up, because Bethel always gets
11 or
13,
12.
14%
Yeah.
turnout on a non-elected official referendum.
Yep.
Then my vote doesn't count because I voted no. I mean, that seems crazy.
Well, I understand. I'm not saying I'm for or against.
She wants a better temperature of what the community could
Yeah,
do.
it's much easier for a small group of people who are out there get very jazzed up, group of parents, group of people who are against them either way, right? And you have low turnout, you only have this one group turning out. Now, overriding what the town meeting did, overriding what the legislative body did.
Right.
See, partly, it's when there are people who want to go to a mayor, council, form of government someday. And they want to get rid of town meeting.
Right.
I'm not saying this in a way is a place where you're just kind of limiting the effect of what a road town meeting can do. I understand where she's going with it. I don't know that I'm for that, but.
I could actually see the other way. The town side, like a department head, would come up with a recommendation like that because usually the Board of Ed budgets always pass much greater than the town side.
That's right.
It's never on a low turnout. you're always getting kids, soccer moms to go vote. So I can't just believe that's important today, you know?
And
It would
actually,
hurt, yeah.
I would go a step further than what she said, because I don't agree, I personally, this is personal opinion. I don't agree that that should be the way it works. I actually hope that at some point we can consider that if one side of the budget does not pass and the other does pass, you can open them both up.
For a revote or to take money out of one to fund the other?
You take money out of one to fund the other, and that's a problem. Should we combine our budgets again? Should we have one vote again? It's something I just wanted to bring up to take a look at, because I'm not at all advocating taking money out of one or the other, because I don't like that. I think that there are people, I think that it's much more like what John says, where the education community comes in and votes for the education budget at the peril of the town budget.
Right.
And I really am tired of seeing the town budget take such a hit.
Because the town side can't take what maybe the Board of Ed side.
I don't think either side
Percentage,
can really take
Well,
it,
that's
because
fair.
we always run pretty lean. So that's, but there ought to be a way, there ought to be a mechanism where you can recraft something. Maybe there's whatever. I wanted to probably one budget vote as a possibility.
I think that one conversation was, what would you propose? I mean,
But again, the proposals from this commission,
Is next
that's
week,
moving on
or
to the
next month,
next
yeah.
agenda.
Okay.
I
So-
just addressed it only because it came up in this
Yeah.
context. So I apologize if
No,
I
you-
overstepped.
Tim just meant continuing the conversation.
Right.
Okay,
So we'll bring that up at that point.
okay.
I was trying to find the
letter from her?
the actual letter. It was that time that we had about 5 or 6 items.
No, I have it here somewhere.
Tim, what letter are you looking for?
There was a letter, one of our early meetings, there was a letter from Dr.
I
Carver.
have it here.
Oh, you have it there?
Do you want to read it?
No, let me read it.
An email dated 8/19/2024 from Dr. Christine Carter to Dan Carter and Melanie O'Brien. Hi, Dan and Melanie. I saw an article about the charter revision. I know I spoke to you separately about my growing concern about the size of the town and the apathy in voting. In addition, I am concerned that many new residents are not at all familiar with our process. We barely get 1,500 people to vote now. I think it is about 1/2 of what I started in Bethel. If there is not an appetite to go to a council structure, representative democracy, then there are many charters that have minimum requirements of electorate turnout budget for budget. I'm sorry, let me back up. If there is not an appetite to go to a council structure, in parentheses, representative democracy, there are many charters that have minimum requirements of electorate turnout for budget approval. I have linked 2 charts below that have this provision, charters below, that have this provision with the language below. So if the majority do not show up to vote, it reverts back, I'm assuming she looked at word 2, the recommended budget. I realize that all budgetary processes have pros and cons. I just feel that with the changing demographic and growth, we need to consider and discuss other options. And then she includes Wilton and Farmington.
And it looks like in both cases, we have 15%.
It's 15%.
If the voter turnout is not 15%, then the budget is considered automatically passed.
Basically, it puts it in the hands of the board of finance. At the end of the day,
Certainly does.
it's a representative democracy. We have the board of finance who spend all the time putting that budget together to keep, a bunch of yahoos who get together on social media and come out the last minute and tank a budget, whether it's school or otherwise.
Right.
And I think, yes, the soccer moms all turn out because they do a good job of communicating. And I'm trying to communicate. I want high turnout no matter what. I understand the risk because we are historically, and we're also representative democracy. Town meeting is a whole other ballgame. I don't want to go from town meeting. Question is this a guardrail that literally gives the board of finance a little more say? Because
Why would it have all the more say?
Because every time it probably would, whatever the proposed budget that went back to the selectmen would be voted in only by the turnout to be less than 15%. And that would probably be the last 3 or 4 cycles that would be the outcome. It would be the proposed budget.
Well, it keeps you from voting 40 times. I mean, I
we still live in America. I mean,
know,
you know.
no, no,
Yeah.
Well, but remember, America, I mean, I'm thinking this, I don't know where I stand, to be honest. But we are in every other way a representative democracy. And that is the dilemma, because we have, like I said, we have elected members of the Board of Finance, 7 people, we have the Board of Finance and the Board of Finance, so, right, we have
10 of you
10
all
people
together. Yep.
go out and spend months putting together this budget. And then if it's not a little legitimate turnout, and it's something very small group of people come out and tank that, the question is, that's good for the town.
Why don't, I'd
Why
like
would
to
the town
start,
meeting had to support it before it gets?
but I'd like to start from the educated place and look at the last 10 budgets.
Right.
So I'll get that,
Yeah.
that information.
I think you're right.
We'll review it at the next meeting.
That would be really great,
And
because
Yeah,
But
then
I,
we know what we're talking about.
but I think we've got some real low numbers, and certainly,
Oh, I remember
used to-
11 in the last 5 or 6
yeah, we
years.
used to
Yeah.
have, but again, we've got to distinguish between a budget referendum and these other capital budget referendums for school projects, water projects.
Oh, no, this is
They're
a-
always.
this is a
really
budget referendum, this is not a
Right. So
regular referendum.
so I want to get, but I want.
No, he
I
means
wanna-
affected by an advisory question on a budget vote. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, so I want to get the voter turnout just for budget referendums, not for
Right.
capital projects.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's, I hope that's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, good.
Is the fact that early voting seems to be more prevalent now, I mean, certainly in the last election, it really made a big difference, early voting. So has that component now changed these percentages that you're referencing?
No, this early voting does not apply to
Budget.
budget referendums.
Does not.
Does not. And we couldn't afford it anyway. It's 15 days of early voting and 14, as it is, early voting
Very expensive.
is really, yeah.
Because you have to fund people all day long for those days.
For multiple
But, you know,
days.
that's our process, this is America. I don't know what to say.
You know, but it doesn't apply. The state legislature did not mandate early voting on local referendums.
Okay, that was my
What
point.
what they did mandate was, so in this coming year, if there is a municipal primary for police commission, for inland wetland alternate,
Right.
we will have to have 7 days of early voting. If there's 7 days of early voting for a primary for a local minor office.
Crazy.
Well, I hope
And
they consider-
I hope they fix it. And then if, and then for our municipal election, we're gonna have to have 14 days of early voting. Jesus. And
So that's a real burden upon the town.
the town has to pay for it.
Probably 20 grand.
It was like 35,000
Yeah.
last time.
Well, so for
So let's
So
just
for the
pass this
presidential-
now.
for the presidential primary, we had, keeping in mind by April 1st, both parties knew who their candidates were going to be. By the time April got it, or by the time Connecticut got away. But we were getting at the most 20 voters per day. And we had 5 people sitting there all day long to process 20 ballots. And that was 4 days for presidential primary. Then we had a primary in August, and we had 7 days of early voting. And we were getting anywhere between 1 person all day long and 20 all day long. But then when the presidential election came, we did 41% of Bethel voters voted by early voting. So it was a huge, we were processing 1 every 45 seconds. It was,
But you're saying that the topic we're talking about, the referendum, has no component of early
there's
voting.
no, it's not required at all. And you wouldn't want it. Our problem is with early voting and with, well, let's put it this way. So we had early voting for this presidential election. 41% came out and voted by early voting. Overall, we had 79% voter turnout for that election altogether. 4 years ago, we had 86%. 8 years ago, we had 85%. So early voting didn't move the needles at all. We actually had a lower overall turnout, even though we had 15 days for people to vote.
Yeah.
And only one voting station. Which made it more inconvenient for, you know, if you wanted to early vote, you had to come here.
Or between absentee and early voting, we processed far more.
Wouldn't the objective be more, should be more geared towards, well, let's change that. What can we do to get more voters in
Well,
for these things rather than coming up with a system where, well, say, we didn't get enough voters, so we know better.
But I think that goes back to Dan's point.
Yeah, I've already started advertising the dates
Yeah.
already.
See,
The process.
I mean, I think we could do, you know, whatever it is, I think there's another manner in which to, you know, attract voters. And
well,
we weren't
but
just
it's not a
up to
matter
do
of the
that.
charter.
Yeah, it's not.
So,
Well, it's a matter of the charter. If you're asking us to say, okay, we're gonna make this part of the charter at 15%, then it is.
it's, well,
It's
at
part
the
of the
next,
discussion.
at the next meeting, I'm gonna bring the history of voter turnout for budget referendums. We can look at it. I'm not hearing a whole lot of interest in this proposal, but we'll look at it a little bit more. Okay. And hey,
I am a boomer
Me
who has
too.
raised 3 millennial children, who has taught, from millennials all the way down to probably Gen X or Gen whatever group of teenagers we're dealing with now. Can we please stop referring to them as soccer moms? We are not soccer moms. I was never. And those of you who knew me knew, hell no, I was not a soccer mom. We're not soccer moms. We are people that are, no matter how we voted, for or against the school budget or the town budget, we are simply people who are interested in the education of the future of our children. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I was waiting for that.
I gotta write that down.
Actually,
She mentioned her, Penny does not like soccer.
I didn't do soccer. I did, okay, guys, I did band. Are you recording this? I did band boosters. I left my kids all over Connecticut and Massachusetts. We all did it. But no, seriously, seriously, can we lose the mentality that the people that are promoting voting for or whatever with the school budget are some subset of parental unit? We're not.
But I think to your point about, you know, categorizing people and about who we can get out to the vote, and if we pass something or we add something like this to the charter, my sense is that Dan's directive of getting the word out is going to become that much more
Oh,
important.
Alice, I'm not agreeing with this. I'm simply talking about the terminology.
Oh,
we've
I
been
beg
using.
your pardon. That's
Oh,
sorry.
okay. No, I want to hear what Tim comes up with.
week.
I want to find out about, look, we all saw what happened to New Fairfield. You know, that was insane. And the budget season, the woman who used to be my secretary is the secretary for New Fairfield. And at one point, there was an article in the paper and she came, and I read it and it said that she lost her temper. And I thought, I've known this woman for 15 years. She has never lost her temper. So New Fairfield is an anomaly, but we all know what happened there. So I want to know what the information actually comes in, because over the past how many years, we will see. So this year had, you know, a gazillion budget votes because we kept getting turned down. And that year, everything just kind of, you know, smooth sailing. I'm simply talking about the language that we use to describe our voter base.
I just think there should be a lot of emphasis on, this is our system, this is democracy. And you know what, we like it or not with New Fairfield, that's the system. If you don't vote, then don't complain about the results. You had an opportunity to come to the table, you didn't.
Absolutely no argument.
I'll put this out. I'm doing Friday update. I'm trying to include things from the charter. This is a big one. I'll put this out and let you know what feedback I get.
Working well.
You're gonna put it out and then you're gonna jump.
No, people aren't somewhat apathetic. The question is if they knew that, it took 15%, otherwise the board, would that keep them from coming out? Or would that motivate them?
Yes.
Is it good consequences or bad consequences?
Right.
If you're going to put that
Airport, yeah.
in your weekly letter, make sure that you say that it was a proposal from Dr. Carver.
Oh, that wouldn't be
and not
fair.
from us.
Right, right.
It's not our proposal.
No,
It's
it's
a
our
public
discussion.
It's a public, I'll just put it to discussion. Like, if you have any thoughts, let us.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even
I don't-
mention it.
No, because it sounds like it's our idea.
No, I can just say it was brought before the board. It doesn't have to, I'm not gonna tie this. to-
It should be transparent. I
In
mean, I don't
public
hide it.
comments, we had,
Should be transparent.
Yeah, by the way, this came from somewhere else along the way too, I thought, right?
No, this is the only proposal.
Dr. Carver's.
Yeah, I don't think.
well,
it's broken down,
if
so
it
by-
would,
by
it
all
would at least
sorts of
gauge
stuff.
interest.
If it's, no, it's all recorded, fine, it's transparent, but if we're just looking at this as a proposal, I think you put it out to the public and say, hey, this has come before the commission, what do you think?
Well, but to Tim's point, because they're gonna read it, part of the article, they're gonna assume it's from this table.
So it's really premature.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like we've got a consensus.
That's why I'm asking this, so.
Maybe after the next meeting,
Because
when we've had this
Because I-
conversation.
I think the idea was to come up with our kind of semi-final draft.
Yeah.
Then have a hearing still before our commission.
Yeah.
And then after that hearing, then we have one more chance to make any adjustments, and then we send it to the board of selectmen.
The board of selectmen will have a public hearing.
Yeah, and we do that one as well, but it's.
We'll just see what sticks to the wall.
So the public will have two chances then to say their mind before we pass it along. So one more chance.
Well, when it comes to the hearing, that's when all the stuff will be out there will come.
Yeah.
So, that's fine.
So,
Yeah. But I'm always looking for me to like tell people what's happening.
Oh, yeah.
because I want people to come to this. I do.
That might get them here.
I'm like,
Well, to say we're discussing the voting of the budget process is not disingenuous, but
It's disappointing town-wide that you could spend 95 million and get 11% to decide how the town's gonna spend the money.
it is.
Period. But I'm not sure that we should lose America by saying, we got 14, so it's a go. Especially if it was a tough year where those 12% voted maybe no to one side of the town or the school. That would be really,
But they're motivated to come out if they're up against it.
right, that would be really.
they may have no experience of ever voting before. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know.
it could very well be that people move here from other towns or cities where they didn't vote on budgets.
Correct.
And they come here and they say, I don't understand.
Yeah, what's this New England thing you got going on?
And I will say that 40 years ago when I moved here, I always came to the budget referendum and said, I don't know anything about this. The people on the Board of Finance know more than I do. So I didn't vote it for a long time, but.
You've come such a long way, Tim.
Well, I grew. So, but looking to our next meeting, we'll be moving on to the next agenda item, which is consideration of proposals presented by commission members. But for transparency, I want to include on the agenda what we're looking at. And so if everyone would, if you have a topic that you want to discuss, at least a week before the next meeting, let me know what the topic is. If there is some sort of reference to an article or a chapter and paragraph, include that if you would. But let's try to, and I may be able to group them too, but everyone should have a chance to talk. And if we'll see whether we can get through them all next meeting or whether it's gonna spill over.
Thank you, Jim.
But I know I have a few. I don't, and Pat had said he's got a few. Does anyone else know of?
Above and beyond what we're already on
Yeah.
board to talk with?
Okay, so we may have a few more.
I'm just hearing about this, so I never really think about it.
Well, you've got a month.
Yeah, I can handle it.
So,
Terry, give me a call, we'll talk.
so, and I think that's it.
I don't think. I'm just gonna, I'll have a couple, but they're small, like little,
Yeah.
like we need, I don't know if we did we change park and recreation to parks and recreation? I know it sounds crazy, but we've got both terms floating around.
Yeah.
And our charter says one and everybody else uses another.
Well, I would bring that up.
So there's issues with the
We don't
economic
need to hear
development
it now.
term. Right now, they have a weird term. They start in February, where every other point board starts in.
I just noticed that. It was, we had never done that in the constables. The constables, the
I didn't know
constables.
the Economic Development Commission.
Take a look at the constables. You have them expiring in February too. I never saw that ever in the past.
Yeah.
It had always been January.
Operationally. The commission provides.
But I was assuming that you had corrected that.
EDC makes sense because they're coming off the holidays and it may be businesses that are busy on the holidays. I don't know from an economic standpoint,
Yeah.
from the business standpoint, whether they're just,
It just from a standpoint of doing all the appointments.
Yeah.
Every year. You've been there, like, yeah, we're in a better situation now, thank you, Mary. And we've got a better hold on where everybody is with their history. You know, and I think we're gonna be good. Once we get everything on board correctly, that'll be good. But that's one outlier. It's a weird, like why they start at that time. And the health director term is screwy actually, because the state statute says one thing and ours says something else, so. We'll bring those little things up there, so throw nothing major. that we know of.
And I don't think they need to be agenda items because they're coming from the
Right.
first selectman and they're just
So
almost
we'll,
cleral.
Well, and
so just get them, so we know what
I
I
can,
get.
I can give info, because I'm an ex officio member, I just get all.
No, I don't mean that part of it. I mean that Tim was looking for people's ideas to be on the agenda, so the public, if they were interested, they could come in. I don't think the things that you're thinking about warrant that.
I still understand, yeah. I'm small.
All right, so if there's no other business.
Motion to adjourn.
That was quick.
But you gotta vote, all right, get a motion.
All in favor?
All,
Aye.
did you really,
Thank you, John.
did you not take your jacket off?
I did take it off, but I put